Right now, I mean, literally as we speak, thousands of people are out there pasting this sprawling, like 10-page prompt into ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah, every single day.
Right. And they hit publish, they give it some clever name, maybe upload a completely random PDF they found on their desktop, and they trick themselves into thinking they've just built a software
A
product.
fully fledged product, yeah.
Exactly. And they launch it to their audience. And if you're listening to this deep dive, you've probably tried one of these tools yourself already.
Oh, we all have.
You type in a real messy problem, and the tool just immediately shatters. I mean, it gives you generic fluff, it completely forgets its instructions, or it just, hallucinates a totally useless response.
It is a massive, massive problem in the current landscape. People are basically treating a dressed-up chat thread as if it were a commercially viable product.
Which it is not.
Not at all. I mean, the barrier to entry has dropped to absolute zero, which is, it's incredible for experimentation. But it has completely warped our understanding of what it actually takes to build a tool that a buyer can rely on.
Yeah.
We're confusing the magic trick of large language models with the actual rigor of product design.
That is the perfect way to frame it. We're staring at this landscape filled with shiny toys, but like very few actual tools. But today, we are changing that paradigm. We are diving deep into the APL 303 module, which is this masterclass framework for AI assistant product architecture.
It's so thorough.
It really is. And our mission today is a highly practical, rigorous walkthrough. We're going to take you from a vague spark of an idea, all the way to a product-ready AI assistant architecture.
Right.
We're covering the whole sequence: research, decision logic, job definition, workflow mapping, platform choice, the instruction architecture, the knowledge base, guardrails, testing.
The whole gauntlet.
Exactly. Packaging, pricing, and launch readiness, everything.
And I think the overarching philosophy here, like the core thesis that you really need to internalize, is that we are building commercially useful assistants.
Right, not just random AI experiments. Exactly. The platform you build on, whether that's OpenAI or Google, Anthropic, whatever, that is not the asset.
Right.
The architecture you design, so the logic, the constraints, the workflow, that is your actual asset. Because if a platform disappears tomorrow, a good architecture can simply be moved to a new container.
It's kind of like setting up a high-end restaurant kitchen, right? The platform is just the building you lease.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you don't own the building, and the landlord might raise the rent or change the locks. But the architecture, your highly specific menu, the sequence of your prep stations, your supply chain, the exact way your expediter calls out orders, that's yours.
That is yours.
So if you have to move across the street to a new building, you just reinstall your architecture. And that's what we are building today.
Absolutely. But, before we can even design that kitchen, we have to talk about why most builders fail before they even start writing instructions.
Oh, this is the trap.
It really is. They start with the technology instead of the problem. A builder will sit down and literally ask, well, what can this LLM do? Or, what should my custom GTT say?
Right, they get completely blinded by the platform's capability.
And that leads them directly into what the APL 303 material brilliantly calls confirmation theater.
Oh man, confirmation theater. I have seen this happen so many times.
We all have.
Break down what this actually looks like mechanically, because it's a trap that, almost everyone falls into.
Right. So confirmation theater is basically the illusion of conducting market research using AI, when in reality, you are just leveraging the model's inherent design to get it to agree with you.
Because they're people pleasers.
Exactly. Large language models are heavily trained using RLHF reinforcement learning from human feedback. That means they are mathematically incentivized to be helpful, agreeable, and just provide you with a satisfying answer.
Yeah, they want you to like them.
So a builder will go to an AI and prompt it with something vague, like, act as a market researcher. I want to build an AI tool that helps entrepreneurs save time. Write a 10-page report on this market.
And the AI, being the ultimate people pleaser, says, what a brilliant idea. Entrepreneurs are indeed very busy. Here are 10 pages on why saving time is good.
Precisely. You skim this massive, completely generic report, you feel this hit of dopamine, you feel completely validated by the quote-unquote research,
Yeah.
and then you just go build the exact same vague, useless tool you were going to build anyway.
Right.
The research didn't challenge any of your assumptions, it just acted as a cheerleader.
It's just an echo chamber.
That is confirmation theater.
So, okay, how do we break that loop? Because the APL Research to Build protocol, it demands that research actually forces build decisions.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want a cheerleader. We want a stress test.
Right. You break the loop by introducing friction into your research prompts. You do not research broad categories like, AI tools for entrepreneurs.
Way too vague.
Way too vague. You have to define an incredibly specific build target, and you assign the AI a role that is specifically designed to find flaws.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you tell the model, act as a highly critical AI product strategist. I am proposing an assistant that specifically helps local HVAC business owners turn their missed call notes into follow-up text messages.
That is super specific.
Exactly. And then you say, identify the existing workarounds they already use. Tell me why this might fail. Which specific segment of this market has the highest willingness to pay for this? And what are the strict operational boundaries we need to observe?
Wait, I can hear the objection already from listeners. Like, if I've been running an HVAC business for 20 years, why am I wasting my time prompting an AI for market research?
Right.
I already know exactly what my peers hate doing. I know the pain points inside out.
Right.
Why not just skip straight to the build phase?
Look, if you have that deep domain expertise, you have a massive advantage. But you still run the deep research protocol because you aren't trying to replace your industry knowledge. You are trying to extract the buyer's language and the commercial boundaries.
Oh, I see.
You might completely understand the technical reality of a missed HVAC call, but the research prompt helps you uncover how that frustrated business owner describes the problem to their spouse at 2:40 a.m.
So it extracts the emotional resonance.
Yes, and it also exposes adjacent risks. Like when you ask the AI to act as a critical product strategist, it might point out, hey, if you are processing missed call notes, you might inadvertently intake personally identifiable information, PII, from the callers.
Oh, wow.
Right. Therefore, your product architecture must include a data redaction step. The expert builder might have completely overlooked that because they are so focused on the plumbing or HVAC aspect of the business.
That makes so much sense.
So the output of this phase must be a build decision report. It's raw material that forces you to identify the most urgent problem, the strongest buyer, and the MVP, the minimum viable product. The absolute smallest, most useful first version you can actually deploy.
Okay, so we've run the gauntlet. We've avoided the confirmation theater trap. We have our build decision report. We've stripped away all the generic fluff. Now we have to define the actual product.
Right.
We have to nail the who and the what. And the APL 303 module is just ruthless about this. Like, vague bots do everything poorly, but sellable products do one thing exceptionally well.
The major shift here is moving from a broad category to a highly specific situation.
A situation.
Yes. If you build an AI that tries to be like a Swiss Army knife for a business owner, so it's helping them with content creation, sales strategy, accounting, life coaching all at once, you are building something that is mathematically impossible to optimize.
Because it's just trying to do too much.
Exactly. In prompt engineering, when you give an LLM a generalized system prompt covering a dozen topics, you widen its semantic space. Its next token prediction becomes incredibly erratic because it's trying to balance too many contexts at once.
That's like an uncalibrated camera lens.
I like that.
Right. It's taking in all the light from the entire scene, but it can't focus on any one thing, so the output is just this blurry, unusable mess.
Okay.
We have to narrow the aperture.
We do.
And the source material gives us a very rigid formula to do that.
Yeah.
The assistant job statement.
Yes. This formula is essential for narrowing that aperture. It goes exactly like this. This assistant helps buyer complete job using workflow so they can practical result.
Okay, let's put that to the test. A weak job statement, the kind you see literally flooding the market right now, sounds like this. This is an AI assistant for business owners to help them work faster.
Yeah, totally useless.
It's completely unavailable. Like, who is it for? Business owners? What does it do? Works faster. There is no architecture there.
Exactly. Now apply the formula to the HVAC example we just discussed. This assistant helps local service business owners turn messy shorthand call notes into formatted follow-up messages using a guided intake workflow so they can respond to leads within 5 minutes without losing critical details.
Oh, the difference is night and day.
Isn't it?
You can actually visualize the tool working. Like, you can test it. Did it turn the messy note into a formatted message? Yes or no? Did it use a guided intake workflow? Yes or no?
And it naturally forces you to create the buyer and use case card. I mean, we have to stop defining buyers by their job titles.
Right.
Plumbers or real estate agents are categories. They are not situations. And a situation is where the actual commercial value lives.
Okay, define the difference mechanically for me. How does building for a situation change the actual code or the instructions we end up writing?
Think about the buyer's physical environment.
Okay.
If the category is just plumber, you might build this beautiful, intricate desktop application where they can type these long queries about pipe layouts.
Sure.
But if you analyze the situation, meaning this is a solo operator who spends 8 hours a day driving a loud van or lying on their back under a leaky sink, you realize they can't type. Their hands are dirty.
Oh, wow.
They are using voice to text on a cracked smartphone while driving.
That changes the entire architecture.
Completely. It completely dictates the inputs. The assistant must be heavily optimized to ingest fragmented, poorly transcribed audio notes.
Right.
And it dictates the outputs. The output cannot be a massive PDF strategy document. It has to be a short, ready-to-send SMS draft that they can copy with just one thumb.
Yeah.
And it dictates their willingness to pay. I mean, they aren't going to pay for a strategy bot.
No.
But they will pay a massive premium for a tool that stops them from losing a $5,000 boiler replacement job just because they couldn't text back in time. Defining the situation prevents you from overbuilding the wrong features.
That is incredibly practical. We are designing for the reality of the user, not the fantasy of the technology.
Exactly.
So we have the WHO and the what locked in. We know their specific situation. Now we have to map out exactly how the assistant gets them from point A to point B.
We need a map.
We need a path, which brings us to the workflow map.
This is where we impose structure on what is an inherently probabilistic system.
Because the AI just wants to guess.
Right. An LLM just wants to predict the next token and generate a response immediately. We have to build a workflow map to control that impulse. The sequence outlined in the module is trigger, input, intake questions, processing steps, decision points, output, review, and handoff.
Let's linger on this and walk through it node by node, because this is the actual engineering of the product.
Let's do it.
So the trigger is the real-world event. The plumber misses a call. The input is the raw data they provide. They tap their phone and say, customer named Dave, pipe burst, needs help today.
Right.
Now we hit a massive architectural milestone. Intake questions. Why can't the AI just draft the text message right now based on that input?
Because the input is incomplete. And if an unarchitected LLM receives incomplete data, it will just hallucinate to bridge the context gap.
Right.
It might draft a message saying, hi, Dave, we will be at your house at 3 p.m., completely inventing the time out of thin air.
Which is terrible.
It's a disaster. So intake questions are a mechanism to break that hallucination loop. The workflow dictates that the AI must pause, analyze the input against a required data schema, and say, wait, I have the name and the problem. I do not have the address or the urgency level.
So instead of generating a fake response, the AI outputs a clarifying question back to the user, like, I need Dave's address and whether this is an emergency before I draft the message.
Exactly.
It acts like a highly competent human assistant who actually stops and asks for missing context.
It does. And once that data is gathered, we hit processing steps and decision points. And decision points are where you program actual branching logic into the LLM.
Give me a concrete example of a branching logic path in this context.
Sure. Let's say the user inputs that the pipe burst is actively flooding a server room in a commercial building.
Okay, major problem.
Big problem.
Yeah.
The decision point logic states, if the input indicates active property damage, branch to the emergency workflow.
Oh, I see.
Right, so the emergency workflow might skip the standard pleasantries entirely and instantly output a high-priority dispatch format, maybe even generating a quick safety checklist for the user to read to the client over the phone, like shut off the main water valve immediately.
Wow.
The AI is making a routed decision based entirely on the context.
That elevates the tool from a simple text generator to a genuine operational asset.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have output, review, and handoff. So the AI drafts the message, the human reads it to ensure accuracy, which is obviously non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And then the handoff.
Yes. And the handoff is frequently, completely ignored by amateur builders.
How so?
An AI output that is just trapped inside a chat window is just an artifact. It has zero commercial utility until it lands in the real world.
Right.
The handoff is the step where the text is actually moved. Is it an API connection that injects it into a CRM? Is it a formatted code block with a little copy button so the user can easily paste it into iMessage? The workflow isn't complete until the data reaches its final destination.
So we have this beautiful, rigorous workflow map on paper. Now we have to decide where this assistant is actually going to live. We have to pick the platform container.
The container, yeah.
And notice, we are making this decision after the workflow is designed, not before.
That sequencing is absolutely critical. The platform is not your strategy. It is just the container for your architecture. But, picking the right container is crucial for user adoption. You have to ask, where does the buyer already work? You want to minimize friction.
Let's break down the technical realities of these different containers because they really aren't interchangeable. Let's start with a custom GPT on OpenAI. When is that the right container?
A GPT is ideal for conversational, guided workflows where the user is already perfectly comfortable logging into a separate chat interface.
Right.
It's excellent if the workflow requires heavy back-and-forth dialogue or data analysis or web browsing to complete the task. But think about this. What if your buyer is a corporate marketing team? They don't want to leave their ecosystem. They live inside Google Docs and Google Sheets.
Right. Forcing them to open ChatGPT, paste a massive document, get the result, and then paste it all the way back into Google Docs is massive friction.
Exactly. In that case, your container should be a Gemini gem. Gems integrate directly into the Google Workspace ecosystem.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. The architecture remains exactly the same. The missing information rules, the decision points, all of it. But you deploy it right where the user's cursor already is.
What about a Claude project on Anthropic?
Claude projects are exceptional when your workflow requires massive context synthesis.
Like what?
Like if your assistant's job is to read 3 50-page legal contracts and identify conflicting clauses.
Oh, wow.
Claude's massive context window and its ability to generate isolated artifacts, like a side-by-side comparative table that stays on the screen while you chat, makes it the superior container for that specific job.
And what if the workflow isn't conversational at all? What if it's, a highly repeatable internal standard operating procedure, an SOP?
Then you don't want a chat interface at all. You want a skill-style workflow, often built in tools like Zapier or Make.
Oh, okay.
In a skill container, the user doesn't chat. They just drop a file into a specific folder, and the architecture automatically triggers. It processes the data through the LLM using your hidden instructions, and it spits the formatted result straight into a database. The logic is the same. The delivery mechanism changes based entirely on the user's operational reality.
I love how clear that makes the landscape. You own the logic, you just lease the optimal container.
Exactly.
But to make sure the container actually executes your logic, we have to talk about programming its brain. We're moving into instruction architecture and knowledge-based planning. And let's be brutal here. A prompt dump is not an architecture.
No, it is not, but the industry is just plagued by prompt dumps. A builder will write something like, you are a friendly expert marketer. Be nice. Help me write good tweets. Use emojis. Don't be boring.
Just awful.
That is a terrible, vague job description. It relies entirely on the LLM's pre-trained biases of what friendly or boring even means. A true instruction architecture is a highly structured stack of logic.
The APL 303 module breaks this stack down into very precise layers. You have role, purpose, user intake, missing information rule, workflow steps, output format, style rules, refusal behavior, and human review rules.
It's a full stack.
Yeah. Why do we need to separate role and purpose? Aren't they basically the same thing?
Not at all. They serve completely different mechanical functions in the prompt.
Okay.
The role sets the persona and bounds the semantic space. So you are an elite B2B technical copywriter. That tells the model which vocabulary weights to prioritize.
Right.
But the purpose gives the model its overarching objective. Your primary objective is to convert raw developer notes into client-facing update emails. Without a specific purpose, the role will just wander off. It might start offering general copywriting tips instead of actually executing the task.
That makes total sense. You're locking it into a persona, and then you're giving that persona a singular mission. Now, let's zoom in on the missing information rule, because we touched on intake questions earlier. But how do we actually write this instruction so the model obeys it? Because LLMs are notorious for ignoring negative constraints, like, don't guess.
Oh, they are terrible at negative constraints. This requires an understanding of attention mechanisms in language models. When you tell an LLM, do not guess the client's budget, the model still has to process the tokens for guess, client, and budget.
That's thinking about it.
Right. The concept is activated in its context window, so often it will inadvertently output the very thing you told it to avoid. To build a robust missing information rule, you must provide a positive alternative pathway.
Give me an example of how to actually code that positive pathway.
Okay, so instead of saying don't guess missing details, you construct a logical if-then constraint. You write, critical rule. Evaluate the user's input against the required data schema, which is name, budget, timeline. If any of these three variables are absent from the input, then you must immediately cease processing the draft. You must output the exact phrase, "I need more information to complete this task," followed by a bulleted list of the missing variables. You may only resume drafting when all variables are present.
You leave it absolutely no room for interpretation. You give it the exact words to say. It's deterministic logic layered right over a probabilistic engine. That is fascinating.
It's the only way to do it.
Now, what about the knowledge base? This is where people upload all their files to give the AI context. I always think of the knowledge base like an open book test.
That is the perfect mental model for understanding RAG retrieval augmented generation, which is exactly what powers these knowledge bases.
Right, so let's say you're taking this high-stakes history exam. It's open book. If you bring your history textbook and your specific class notes, you have a massive advantage.
Obviously.
But imagine you also brought your math textbook, maybe 3 random fantasy novels, and a cookbook, just because you had extra room in your backpack. What happens during the test? You are frantically flipping through irrelevant pages, you're getting confused, and you're wasting time. You might even accidentally write down a recipe instead of a historical date. You should only bring the exact cheat sheet you need.
It's so true. Builders have this terrible instinct to just upload their entire hard drive because they think more data equals a smarter AI.
Yeah.
They upload old brand guidelines, rough drafts of blog posts, pricing sheets from 2021, random Zoom transcripts. A knowledge base is a highly curated reference system. It is not a junk drawer.
It's not Dropbox.
No. When you overload the context window with contradictory information, the LLM's retrieval mechanism pulls the wrong text blocks, and that leads to confident, detailed, and completely inaccurate outputs.
So how do we sort the files before we upload them? What actually makes the cut for this open book test?
The module gives us strict categories for source sorting. First is must include. These are the foundational truths. The current brand voice guide, the exact specifications of the offer, the operational constraints.
Okay.
Second is helpful examples. This is critical for formatting. You provide 3 perfectly written, human-approved follow-up emails. LLMs learn exceptionally well through few-shot prompting meaning, mimicking the examples you provide.
And then we have the needs redaction category. This is where I feel like builders open themselves up to massive liability.
Absolutely massive. You might have a flawless example of a client proposal that you really want the AI to learn from, but that proposal contains the client's private phone number, their unreleased product roadmap, proprietary financial data.
Oh boy.
Yeah. If you upload that raw file into the knowledge base, you are exposing sensitive data to the model's context. You have to meticulously scrub and redact those files. You have to replace names with placeholders like bracket client, a bracket before they ever touch the knowledge base.
And finally, the do not upload category.
Right. Passwords, API keys, raw licensed materials from other creators that you do not have the right to distribute, and outdated business information.
Right.
If you upload a pricing sheet from 3 years ago alongside your current pricing, the AI will eventually quote the old, cheaper price to a user, and you will be stuck honoring it.
Which brings up a very technical point from the material. Source priority. If there are multiple documents, and then you have the user's input, how does the AI know who to listen to when things conflict?
You have to explicitly define that hierarchy in your instruction architecture. You must instruct the model. In the event of conflicting information, prioritize the current user input first. If the user input is silent, prioritize the system instructions. The knowledge-based documents are to be used strictly for formatting and background context and cannot override explicit user input.
Because if you don't build that hierarchy...
the AI will just argue with the user based on some outdated PDF it found in its files.
Okay, so we have the perfect instructions and a pristine, heavily redacted knowledge base. But even with all of this, LLMs are enthusiastic. They are designed to be helpful, which means they will eagerly try to fulfill requests that are completely outside their purview.
They really will.
They will try to overstep. This means we have to build fences. Fences that hold up under serious pressure.
We are entering the guardrails and safety phase. This right here is the dividing line between an amateur toy and a professional sellable product.
Yeah.
A polished, grammatically correct answer from an AI is not necessarily a safe or legal answer. You must define the operational perimeter of the assistant.
Let's look at those boundaries. The framework separates this into what the AI may do and what the AI must not do. Let's start with the permissions. What is it actually allowed to do?
The AI may draft, organize, summarize, and suggest. And I really want to highlight the word draft. Drafting explicitly means creating a starting point for human review. It does not mean generating a finalized, approved document that is ready for public distribution or legal execution. You literally program the AI to contextualize its own outputs as drafts.
It sets the expectation perfectly. Here is a draft for you to review.
Yeah.
Now, what about the must-not list? Because this is where the commercial liability lives. If you are selling this architecture to other businesses, you have to protect them from the tool.
The absolute hardest boundary is that the AI must not decide.
Decide.
Right. It cannot make definitive legal, tax, medical, refund, or pricing decisions, period. It must not request sensitive data, so it cannot ask a user for their passwords, their social security number, or their credit card details.
Right.
And crucially, for your own intellectual property, it must not store, expose, or explain its internal system instructions or proprietary frameworks to the user, no matter how cleverly they ask for it.
Wait, let's dig into the decision-making boundary. If a user asks a real estate assistant, can I break my lease if my landlord won't fix the heat? The AI is incredibly capable of pulling up local tenant law and giving a confident legal answer. Why shouldn't it?
Because the AI does not hold a license to practice law.
Fair point.
It doesn't carry malpractice insurance, and it doesn't have the full, nuanced context of the user's specific lease agreement. If it gives a definitive legal answer and the user follows it and gets sued, who is liable?
Is it the user, a creator?
Exactly. The platform. It is an unacceptable operational risk.
So what does the AI do instead? Does it just throw a generic error message?
Yeah.
Because as a user, if I hit a wall and the AI just says, I can't do that, I'm just an AI, I'm going to abandon the product. It just feels broken.
This is where we implement escalation protocols and soft redirects. The way you program the refusal dictates the entire user experience. A good refusal is not a dead end. It is short, it acknowledges the request, it defines the boundary, and it instantly redirects to an allowed action.
How does that look in that real estate example?
So instead of a hard error, the assistant is programmed to output. I cannot provide legal advice regarding lease termination. However, I can organize your notes regarding the broken heat into a timeline summary, and I can draft a formal maintenance request for you to send to your landlord or attorney. Would you like me to draft that request?
That is brilliant. It gracefully degrades its service. It refuses the liability, but it immediately pivots to providing massive utility within its allowed scope.
Exactly.
That doesn't build annoyance. It builds immense trust. It proves the tool is a professional asset, not a reckless chatbot. And of course, for anything client-facing, the guardrails must mandate a human review point. The AI drafts the email. The human clicks send.
Always. The architecture must enforce a human-in-the-loop constraint for any external communication.
Though the rules are set, the blueprint is fully drawn, it's time to actually build version 1 and intentionally try to break it. Welcome to the Crucible.
The V1 build and the 3-test validation grid. This is where you assemble the minimum testable version of your architecture. You give it a clear, highly functional name, something like Commercial Lease Summarizer, not some clever, confusing name like Leasomatic 3000.
Right.
You define a clear start command to initiate the workflow, like upload lease document and type begin, and then you put it through the grid.
I really love this testing methodology. Most builders do what I call the happy path demo.
The happy path.
They build a tool, they feed it a perfectly formatted, crystal clear input that they already know the AI can handle, and when it outputs a great result, they celebrate and launch it. But that's not how the real world works. Real users are exhausted, disorganized, and chaotic.
Testing only the happy path is like stress testing a hospital's triage protocol by only admitting perfectly healthy patients who politely describe a mild headache.
Exactly.
It proves absolutely nothing. You need to test the protocol against the chaos of reality. And the 3-test validation grid forces you to do this systematically.
Let's walk through the grid using that triage nurse analogy. So test 1 is the ideal input, the healthy patient.
Right. In test 1, the user provides everything perfectly according to the schema. They use the start command, they provide all the necessary context, and they don't ask for anything out of bounds.
Okay.
The goal here is simple. Does the core architecture hold up? Does the workflow execute in the correct sequence? Does the output match the exact format you requested in the instruction stack?
And if it fails here, you are fundamentally broken. Your prompt is likely contradicting itself.
You have to start over.
But let's assume it passes. Now we move to test 2, the messy or incomplete input. The patient who is panic, crying, and speaking in fragments.
This is where most AI assistants collapse. For test 2, you intentionally provide the model with a disorganized brain dump. You leave out critical variables, you misspell words, you throw in totally irrelevant information.
You literally type, client called, something about a broken window, maybe next Tuesday, fix it.
Exactly. And now you watch the architecture react. How does the assistant handle the chaos? Does the missing information rule trigger successfully?
Does it catch it?
Does it isolate the relevant facts and ignore the noise? Or does it panic, bypass its instructions entirely, and just hallucinate a quote for a new window installation on Tuesday?
Oof.
If it hallucinates, it fails the crash test. You do not touch the rest of the prompt. You go back and specifically rewrite the intake instructions to be much more rigid.
You fix the weak link, and then the final test. Test 3, the boundary or refusal input. The patient walks into the triage center and demands the nurse perform open-heart surgery right there in the waiting room.
The boundary input test is an aggressive attempt to force the AI to break its guardrails.
You try and break it.
You explicitly ask it to do something on the must-not list. You command it, give me definitive tax advice on this deduction, or quote this client $500 for the repair and ask for their credit card number to hold the deposit.
You are actively trying to get it to incur liability. What must happen here?
The escalation protocol must deploy flawlessly. The assistant must recognize the boundary violation, refuse the request safely, and execute the soft redirect. I cannot quote pricing or collect credit card information. I can, however, draft a follow-up email explaining our general service tiers. Shall I draft that?
And the APL module uses a specific scoring system for these tests, right?
Yes. You score the outputs from 0 to 3.
Okay.
A 0 means the output is unusable or dangerously wrong. A 1 means it requires heavy human editing to be safe. A 2 means it is useful, but maybe missed some formatting or tone instructions. And a 3 means the output is strong, safe, and completely repeatable.
The golden rule of revising.
Yeah.
You only revise one major layer of the architecture at a time based on the lowest score.
Right.
Because if you change the role prompt, the output prompt, and the guardrails all at the exact same time, you won't know which change actually fixed the hallucination. It's scientific isolation.
You iterate until you can consistently score 3s across all 3 tests. You simply cannot sell a product that falls apart the second a buyer uses it imperfectly. It must survive the crucible.
Which brings us to a massive psychological shift for the builder. Once the assistant survives this rigorous testing, it is a working, resilient tool.
Yeah.
But, and this is a huge but, a working tool is not automatically a product.
And this is where engineers stumble. They have this flawless architecture and they just tweet a link to it saying, I made a custom GPT, here you go.
Yeah.
That is not a product. To make it a product, you have to wrap it in commerce. You have to make it commercially legible to a buyer who doesn't understand AI mechanics at all. We are now entering the commercial wrap, packaging, and pricing.
Let's talk about making it legible. The tool needs a product packaging sheet. What does the buyer actually need to know before they are willing to pull out their credit card and integrate this thing into their business?
They need absolute clarity on 5 elements. First, the promise. This is not some hype statement about leveraging the power of AI.
No jargon.
Right. It is a concrete statement of utility. This tool reduces your proposal writing time from 2 hours to 15 minutes.
Simple.
Second, the primary output. What tangible asset do they walk away with? Is it a drafted email, a formatted spreadsheet, a legal summary?
They need to know what falls out of the machine when they put the lever.
Third, the included assets. Because you aren't just selling a link to a chatbot, you are selling a complete operational package. The assets include the start commands, the user guide, the specific templates they need to copy-paste into the knowledge base, troubleshooting checklists.
Right.
Fourth, the use steps. Literally step 1, step 2, step 3 of exactly how to operate the tool in their daily workflow.
And fifth, the most critical element that everyone seems to forget, support. What support is included and what is explicitly not included.
If you do not define the support boundary, the buyer will implicitly assume that you are their personal IT department for the rest of eternity.
Oh, absolutely.
If OpenAI changes their interface, the buyer will email you demanding a fix. You have to state clearly. This product includes 30 days of email support for setup issues. It does not include custom workflow modifications or platform troubleshooting.
And establishing that support boundary dictates your pricing model. Price is not just a number, it is a delivery promise.
That's a great way to put it.
Let's break down the economics of these pricing models, because this is where creators accidentally bankrupt their own time. Let's start with the one-time purchase model.
Okay, so the one-time purchase is ideal for highly productized, self-guided tools that have clear, deterministic outputs and require minimal ongoing updates.
Give me an example.
For example, a specialized prompt architecture for formatting blog posts, bundled with a training video. You sell it for $99. The operational burden on you, the creator, is very low once it's delivered.
But what if you are building something that requires constant maintenance, like an assistant that analyzes current tax codes, or a tool where you are constantly adding new templates to the knowledge base every week?
In that case, a one-time fee will completely destroy your margins because your operational burden is continuous.
Right.
You must use a subscription or VIP resource model. If the value of the tool compounds over time because the knowledge base is updated, or because they get access to a community of users, or because you are covering the API costs of their token usage, you charge a recurring fee. The subscription revenue funds the ongoing support and token costs.
And the third major category is the client build or done with you service. This isn't a digital product you sell to the masses.
No, this is highly customized consulting. This is for a corporate client who needs an assistant deeply integrated into their private business data, requiring heavy setup, custom API hooks into their CRM, team training.
Yeah, that's completely different.
You aren't selling a $99 prompt, you are selling a $10,000 architecture implementation.
This still requires us to look at the operational economics of support, because I see creators selling a highly complex custom AI business agent for a one-time fee of like $49, and the sales page promises lifetime updates and support. Mechanically, that is a suicide pact.
It is an absolute trap. They are vastly overpromising on a low support pricing tier. Let's do the math.
Let's do it.
If you sell it for $49 and the user emails you 3 times over the next year because the platform UI changed, and it takes you 20 minutes to resolve each ticket, you have just spent an hour of specialized labor for a fraction of that $49. Your hourly rate plummets.
It's painful.
Conversely, I see consultants build incredibly sophisticated bespoke workflows for a business, handling all their private data integration, and they only charge a $500 one-time setup fee. They are wildly underpricing a massive high support burden. The pricing model must ruthlessly match the use frequency, the output value, and the update and support burden you are taking on.
Okay, but this brings up the most common anxiety I hear from builders, the intellectual property question.
The big one.
If I package all of this up, the workflow, the prompts, the knowledge-based curation, am I legally allowed to sell access to an architecture that runs on OpenAI's ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude, just reselling their software?
This is a vital distinction, and it's exactly why the mindset shift at the beginning is so important. You are not selling the platform. The platform is a utility, like electricity or internet access.
Right.
You are selling your architecture. You are licensing the buyer profile, the workflow map, the highly engineered instruction stack, the redaction protocols, and the guardrails. Those logical structures belong to you, and they happen to execute on the platform, which leads us directly into protecting the asset and launch readiness.
IP boundaries, the scary legal stuff. But the APL 303 material insists this isn't about making it scary, it's about making it clean. A clean product has clean boundaries.
You need a resale boundary checklist. You have to clearly define for the buyer and for yourself what you created versus what is merely licensed. What you created is the specific sequence of instructions, the workflow logic, and the curated original examples. That is your IP.
But what about third-party frameworks? Let's say I build a marketing assistant that evaluates copy based on a famous copywriting formula from a well-known author.
You must clearly state that the framework is licensed or utilized under fair use for analysis, but you do not claim ownership of that author's framework. You are selling the automation of the analysis, not the framework itself.
And most importantly, we have to define what we cannot transfer or sell.
This is where major ethical and legal lines are crossed. You cannot sell the private client data you use to stress test your tool. If you used real client emails to tune your prompts, those must be strictly purged before launch. Furthermore, you cannot sell raw, licensed source files from other creators. I see this constantly. A builder takes a paid course, copies the creator's proprietary prompt architecture, changes 3 words in the persona definition, and resells it as their own product.
Which is stealing.
That is an IP violation. The buyer of your product needs to know exactly what they're getting: a license to use your architecture internally for their business operations. They do not receive the right to extract your system instructions and resell them as their own competing product.
That clarity protects everyone. We also have to be vigilant about avoiding impossible claims in our marketing. It is so tempting to say, This AI assistant will double your revenue and generate 100 qualified leads a day.
You cannot guarantee business outcomes based on a probabilistic text generator. You cannot guarantee legal compliance. And crucially, you cannot guarantee that the underlying platform features will remain unchanged. If Google deprecates a feature in Gemini tomorrow, your tool might temporarily break.
Which reinforces the core thesis. The architecture is the asset. If Google changes the rules, your workflow map and instruction stack remain perfectly valid. You just port them over to a new container. You update the deployment, not the logic.
Exactly. So you have your boundaries set, your claims are realistic, and your IP is clean. Now you have to actually hand the product to the buyer, the launch path, and the delivery checklist.
I have a metaphor for this.
Hit me.
Launching a complex digital product without proper onboarding is like ordering a luxury multi-piece wardrobe system. If the delivery truck pulls up to your house and just dumps a pile of 400 loose wooden planks, hinges, and screws onto your front lawn without a box or a manual, you are going to be furious.
I would be livid.
Right. You don't have a wardrobe. You have a pile of garbage on your grass. To deliver it properly, it has to be boxed. It needs the step-by-step IKEA-style manual, the Allen wrench, and a customer service number to call if a piece is missing.
That is exactly what the delivery checklist accomplishes. A URL link is not onboarding.
No.
Just emailing a buyer a link to your custom GPT is literally dumping the wood on the lawn. They will click it, stare at a blank chat interface, not know what to type, and immediately ask for a refund.
Because they don't know what to do.
You must provide access instructions. Do they need a paid plus account to run this? What is the exact start command they should type? What are the known limitations? What should they do if the AI hallucinates?
You have to teach them how to drive the car before you hand over the keys. And the material mentions a next offer bridge as part of the delivery. What does that mechanism do?
The next offer bridge is a strategic path for buyers who realize they are in completely over their heads.
Okay.
They bought your $99 self-guided version, they read the manual, but they realize their business data is just too complex to organize themselves. The bridge is a simple call to action inside the onboarding material that says, need this architecture customized and integrated with your private business data. Book a done-with-you build call with our consulting team.
Oh, that's smart.
It seamlessly moves the overwhelmed buyer up your value ladder from a low-ticket product to a high-ticket service.
It captures the overflow demand. That is brilliant business design. And that brings us to the final milestone, the readiness decision. Looking at all of this, the rigorous research, the workflow mapping, the instruction stack, the stress testing, the packaging, the IP boundaries, you have to make a final call on what this thing actually is.
The goal of the APL 303 protocol isn't to force every single idea you have into a $47 downloadable product. The goal is to give you the clarity to see what the assistant actually is and to deploy it responsibly.
Right.
Maybe, after going through the crucible, you realize it's not ready for the public, but it's perfect for a closed beta group. Maybe you realize it's too complex to be a standalone product, and it would be much more valuable as an internal VIP resource given exclusively to your high-end coaching clients.
Or maybe the setup is so intense that it should only ever be sold as a custom client build.
Exactly. The architecture process reveals the commercial reality of the tool.
Wow. Okay, let's take a breath and recap the massive journey we just went on. Because we started with a very common, very dangerous behavior, pasting a random prompt into a chat window and just hoping for the best.
We replaced hope with engineering. We subjected the idea to the APL 303 protocol. We ran deep, friction-heavy research to extract a concrete build decision, avoiding confirmation theater.
We nailed down a specific situational buyer and a single observable job using the job statement formula.
We didn't just guess at the features. We mapped the exact workflow from the trigger event, through the vital missing information intake questions, past the decision points, all the way to the real-world handoff.
We chose a platform container, a GPT, a GEM, a Claude project based on where the user already works, minimizing their friction.
We programmed a rigid, multi-layered instruction architecture, focusing heavily on positive pathway rules to prevent hallucinations. We curated a pristine knowledge base, treating it like a highly restricted open book test, redacting sensitive data, and establishing strict source priority.
We built tall, sturdy fences, guardrails that define what the AI must never do, and escalation protocols that gracefully redirect the user when they push the boundaries. We threw the V1 build into the crucible, stress testing it against messy, chaotic inputs and aggressive boundary violations until it scored perfectly.
And finally, we wrapped that logic in a clean commercial package. We defined the exact promise, the outputs, and the strict support boundaries to protect our own time. We match the operational burden to the correct pricing model, define our IP boundaries, and design an onboarding experience that actually teaches the buyer how to use the tool.
The core takeaway here is profound, and it completely changes how you should view the AI industry moving forward. The platform you are interacting with is just a container. It is a temporary lease. But the architecture you just built, the buyer profile, the workflow map, the instruction stack, the testing protocols, the commercial wrap, that logic is the true asset.
It really is.
If a platform disappears or changes its rules tomorrow, you don't lose your product. You just move your architecture to the next container.
You own the logic.
You own the logic.
Yeah.
And when you own the logic, you insulate yourself from the hype cycle. You aren't just playing with AI, you're building resilient software products. I love that. You own the logic. It brings precision and rigor back to a process that has felt incredibly muddy for the past few years. You don't have to guess anymore. You can draw the blueprint, lay the foundation, and build something that lasts.
You can finally separate the real products from the parlor tricks.
Absolutely. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over. I want you to look at your own daily life. Look at the operational reality of your business, your side hustle, or even your team at work. Look past the obvious tasks. Which of your messy, scattered, deeply frustrating workflows, the ones involving disorganized notes, missed communications, or repetitive formatting, is secretly an AI-assisted product, just waiting to be architected? The blueprint is in your hands now. You know how to extract the decisions, build the logic, and wrap it for the market.
The only thing left is to start mapping the workflow.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of tomorrow. Until next time, keep looking past the platform and keep building the logic.